Look at the things around you. Everything in this world is unique in its own way. The plants and trees that we see here in school are different from one another. Some grow to be tall, some grow to be short, some are monocots, and a lot of them are dicots. That also applies to the species of animals in our world today. Some are mammals, reptiles, birds, fishes, and so on and so forth. Truly, it is amazing to think that we are created as diverse beings with characteristics so distinct from each other. It all stems from biodiversity. According to Steve Morton, an Australian scientist who advocates for ecological sustainability. Biodiversity is the term to describe the variety of all living organisms on Earth. Moreover, biodiversity also talks about the evolutionary history and ecological processes that comes with it.
But how is it truly significant in our lives? Why should we care?
Us, humans, have been a huge factor in the changes that have been brought upon this planet.
Clearly, as times have gone by, the impact of our presence has been known in our planet with the extinction and endangerment of animals, the habitat losses of said animals,
And climate change, which would then cause vulnerability of food supplies to viruses or diseases, and the shortage of fresh water supply.
Globally, this is an urgent issue, as it was reported in the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services this year that the world has lost 87% of its wetlands in the past 300 years because of human activities such as urban expansion and unsustainable management of croplands and grazing lands. Moreover, there is a massive decline of population of fishes, terrestrial animal, and plant species because of pollution, natural resource extraction, and land use. It has been reported that there is a 26% dip in the fish population and 42% of the terrestrial animal and plant species have vanished the earth. If this continues, it will have affected over 3.2 people. If this continues, it will affect over 3.2 billion people on this earth, causing migration, reduced crop yields, less food supply, and more.
Locally, according to DENR, Philippines is known a megadiversity country, which houses more than 52,177 described species, wherein half is only found in our country and in nowhere else. Such species include the famous Philippine eagle, or the monkey-eating eagle, the Philippine crocodile, the Philippine flying lemur, the Philippine mouse deer, the Philippine spotted deer, and the tamaraw. Plants native only to our country include sacred garlic pear, or Crateva religiosa, sea poison tree, or Barringtonia asiatica, Rafflesia scadenbergiana, or known to the Bagobo tribe as boo, and spoon-leaved sundew, or Drosera spatulata. However, we may lose all of this as our country still has been letting such events leading to the destruction of our resources happen, like overexploitation, deforestation, land degradation, climate change, and pollution.
Conservation in its entirety has two forms: in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. Both deal with the protection of endangered species.
On one hand, in situ conservation protects these endangered species in their natural habitat, going to the lengths of preventing predators to get to them and protecting their habitat against human activities. Examples of this method is seen in national parks, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves.
On the other hand, ex situ conservation protects these endangered species outside of their natural habitat. In this method, people create artificial habitat and take care of them in that enclosed space. Examples of this method is seen in zoos, botanical gardens, and aquariums. To be able to gain more knowledge, we interviewed Sir Gerald Sullivan.
Could you introduce yourself to the video?
Okay, I am Gerald Sullivan. So I'm currently affiliated with the Department of Biological Sciences of the College of Science. I also graduated in the university. I took up my BS in biology back in 2011. Then I took up my master's also in the university. I finished my master's at 2015. Currently, I'm also taking my PhD sa UST Graduate School. In PhD in biology, major in environmental biology.
So for the first question, what is biodiversity?
So when you say biodiversity, it basically means biological diversity or everything that we see. I mean, animals, plants, even the environment. So kasama siya sa biodiversity. Okay.
Does species diversity follow any patterns?
So if we're gonna base it sa textbook or sa basic biodiversity study, so pag sinabi mong yung pattern, so pwedeng species may vary globally, they may vary locally, and then they may vary over time. Yeah.
How does biodiversity affect us? Why is it important and worthy of our protection?
Actually, biodiversity affects us every day. So, kung walang biodiversity, wala, itong interview na to wala. So, kung mawala yung biodiversity, mawala rin tayo. So, it's very worthy for protection kasi umaasa tayo sa biodiversity. It's not biodiversity umaasa sa atin. Yeah.
What are the possible issues encountered and what did we do to try to solve it?
Issues encountered with regards to biodiversity is basically ngayon yung pinaka-hot issue pag sinabing biodiversity is yung legal trade. So, some people look at biodiversity or yung mga animals as pets, pero hindi dapat eh. If you're familiar with yung mga nag-illegal traffic ng animals, yung kunwari, they're gonna get 100 pieces of pangolin somewhere, tapos ibebenta nila. So, if that 100 pieces of pangolin nakukunin nila, tapos ibebenta nila somewhere, makaka-affect siya sa biodiversity eh. So, ibig sabihin, pwedeng maubos yung mga pangolin. Ganun.
What are some of the conservation efforts being done in preserving biodiversity? And do you think our conservation efforts are enough in combating the negative effects brought on by our own activities to nature?
Actually, conservation efforts. So, pinakasikat dyan in the Philippines is yung NIPAS Act. So, NIPAS Act means National Integrated Protection Area Systems Act of 1992. So, basically, NIPAS Act, siya yung law na nagsasabi na dapat magkaroon tayo ng mga protected areas. So, pag protected area yung isang lugar, mas mataas yung, mas mahigpit sila doon. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ka pwedeng kumuha ng plants, hindi ka pwedeng kumuha ng animals. Honestly, in the Philippines, medyo hindi siya na-enforce that much. So, feeling ko hindi lang naman sa government yung fault. So, pati tayo as individuals, may fault din tayo dun eh. Kasi, hindi tayo sumusunod sa mga in-enforce ng government.
So for the next question, what do you propose as alternative options in the methods being used today to protect biodiversity?
Today, siguro, the simplest way or yung everyone can do it is siguro make everyone informed about what's happening to biodiversity through social media. Kasi sobrang wide ng reach ng social media. So, gumawa ka lang ng video or short or an image na saying na biodiversity is very important and we're running out of time.
So like this video here?
Yeah, this video is very informative. So, if a lay person, or yung hindi naman, an example, kayo, engineering students, hindi naman kayo into biology or conservation, kasi hindi naman yan yung field nyo. Pero, once you see a video or a short clip or a image, let's say sa Facebook na nagsasabi na, this is happening right now. So, informing people with what's happening is a is a is a small step to help in conservation.
What is the difference between in situ conservation and ex situ conservation?
Okay, when you say in situ conservation, so kino-conserve mo yung species kung saan siya kung nasaan siya talaga. Example, if you're gonna do in situ conservation sa isang specific fish. So doon mo gagawin yung conservation efforts mo kung nasaan nakikita yung fish. Kung nakikita siya sa Lake Taal. So gagawa ka ng mga studies na magta-try mo conserve yung species na yun dun sa lake mismo. Pag sinabi mo ex situ, aalisin mo siya dun sa environment niya. Example, yung fish na yun, dadalhin mo siya sa laboratory. Sa aralin mo kung paano ba siya mag-grow, kung ganito yung mga parameters. If the temperature is like this, dadami ba siya? If the food is this, dadami ba siya? Or mag-survive ba siya? Ganun yung difference nun.
Which do you think is more effective in preserving wildlife?
From in situ and ex situ? Actually, both siya na dapat hand-in-hand ginagamit. Hindi kasi pwedeng in situ lang. Kasi pag in situ ka lang, maraming factors yun eh. Paano pag bumagyo? Paano pag hindi accessible yung area? Pag ex situ naman, controlled masyadong environment. So, pwedeng hindi naman ganun talaga yung nangyayari. So, hindi siya exactly the same thing na nangyayari. Kasi pag ex situ, kinokontrol mo lahat eh. Temperature, kukontrolin mo. Sa specific na, sa lake na yun, hindi naman ganun yung, hindi consistent na ganun yung temperature. So, siya, hand in hand, so hindi pwedeng isa lang. Effective kung pareho mong gagamitin.
What are the technologies involved in preserving biodiversity and how does it help?
Actually, more on the molecular, yung mga gumagamit ng molecular studies, like yung inaaral nila yung genes ng mga organisms para alam nila kung paano siya makakonserve.
What are the principles associated with biotechnology for biodiversity conservation?
As I've said, yun nga, yung mga nag-aaral ng molecular techniques. So, basically, kinukuha nila yung molecular data ng isang organism, tapos merong tinatawag na gene bank o gen bank. Para siyang bank, pero ang nasa loob is molecular data ng iba't ibang organisms. Kasi if you have the molecular data of an organism, you can identify the organism kahit na hindi mo pa siya nakikita. So basically, unique kasi yung molecular data ng bawat organism. So makakatulong yun sa pag-conserve ng isang organism.
For the last question, how can I help in promoting the conservation and protection of biodiversity?
Personally, as someone who teaches biology, siguro yun lang. I could tell my students na yung pag-conserve natin sa environment or sa animals na nakita natin is very important. So, every day, siguro sa class, para lang ma-inform sila na we depend on biodiversity, we depend on the environment, and if we won't act now, or we won't do our little steps, siguro yun nga, pag-share sa social media, pag-inform ng mga tao na nakaka-apekto yung little things like pagtapon ng basura or pag-overuse ng mga resources natin. It would eventually in the long run, kung hindi man tayo yung maapektuhan, maybe yung mga next generation sa atin yung hindi na makakakita ng mga organisms na yun.
So, is there anything you'd like to say to the people, especially the youth, to raise awareness for the cause?
Ayun nga. So, sa youth, sa inyo, na very active sa social media, yun kasi nakikita kong best avenue for raising awareness eh. Yung tipong Instagram story ka lang ng 15 seconds about conservation, malayong marating nun eh. Kung makita yun ng isang individual na wala naman sa Pilipinas na ganito yung nangyayari. Perfect example if you're from Lake Taal or if you're Batangas, di ba? Lately nasabi yung Sardinella tawilis, na siya eh, nag-cause for concern na siya kasi nga nauubos na siya. So if you're gonna share something about it na parang dati nung bata ako ganito kadami yung nakikita namin yung tawilis, ngayon ganito na siya.
Like the challenges that we're doing today, like 10-year challenge. So
Yeah, mga ganun. So, pwede mong gawing, di ba, most people post, kahit ano pinupost niya sa social media, lalo na for fun lang, what if you're gonna post something na relevant na would raise awareness. So I think yun yung best way. As individuals, as someone who wala namang masyadong reach, so yun yung best for me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you po.
Biodiversity is the key so we can all live in green.
Hi! So, upon making this documentary, I have learned a lot of things. Mostly from the professor that we interviewed, but some I've actually researched on my own about biodiversity and biodiversity conservation, what it is and why we should care. The first lesson that I've gained from making this documentary is that us as a generation have a lot of potential in solving biodiversity loss. It is because that we have technologies that we can further enhance and develop, and therefore in the future we could probably reach the level of cloning extinct or endangered species. Second is that biodiversity loss is crucial and affects all of us because one extinct species can affect a whole ecosystem, and that includes us, the top predators. Third is that we need to educate ourselves on how we can help reduce biodiversity loss. And that means, for example, adapting a more sustainable lifestyle so as to cut the amount of resources that we use every day. Thank you. It's time for us to wake up basically and see how our ways have harmed biodiversity.
For my individual reflection on biodiversity, biodiversity is the key to a good health for all living organisms. Nature provides us all with so many wonderful and useful things, from beautiful sights, to food and shelter, to maintaining the delicate balance necessary to sustain life on this planet. The diversity of food, materials, and medicines contribute not only to healthy consumers, but to a healthy economy as well. If humans continue to cause extinctions of species, whether plants or animals, the global ecosystem is destined for collapse due to the reduction of the biological complexity. And in turn, weakens our ecosystem and it makes it more vulnerable to collapse. As a result, it is ever important that we do our due diligence in helping nature to thrive however we can. That starts with taking care of the environment. We need to make sure that we leave this place better for the next generations whose jobs are also to look after the planet.
Species diversity is useful to a man in a variety of ways. A large number of species of edible plants is equivalent to giving more variety of crops, satisfying diverse food habitats. Similarly, a large number of species of animals ensures an appropriately long food chain that sustains the ecosystem. However, human activities are spreading their wings, causing massive extinction species. The cost associated with this is very high, and we seldom realize it. The threat to biodiversity can be lessened only through a new model of development that avoids losses to biological diversity. The diversity must be preserved at any cost for the benefit of our future generation, and if we cannot do the same, our descendants will never forgive us.
Yo plano fu, la pano no tu, ma banana la camo pitala mo banana baba banana potato banana tokari no potato li kani maro mani kano chika baba banana